kind of.
Okay, I just hit live.
A
It
little
says we are live.
Okay.
And do you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yay!
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, we're not echoing.
So,
Okay, perfect.
Okay, awesome. All right, we are live on a new link.
That's good.
Ready to fucking rock.
I want to go sit on the roof.
Okay.
So today I am joined by 6hostii, who I met on one of Wix Gender Wars panels. And initially I reached out because I wanted to talk about like feminism and kind of just see where other women are at and how they're feeling about feminism and like the modern blah, 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 all that stuff. But then we started talking, we had all this crazy shit in common. So we decided to share a bit about our backgrounds with struggling with opiate addictions, our families, also how that's affected them, and our experiences trying to get help, which have fucking sucked. So if you want to introduce yourself and give a little background, this is 6hostii.
Okay, sure. Yeah. Hi, 6hostii, and the G in 6hostii is spelled the number 6. I'm 28 years old, and new to kind of this whole like streaming YouTube world. As far as, are we going to the like the whole just backgrounds for as far as like everything, or just
Sure. Yeah, if you want, we could jump right into it. So I think a lot of people don't understand how someone ends up on fentanyl, especially when it sounds so scary for good reason. It's a fucking terrifying, deadly drug that's killing hundreds of thousands of people every year. But it's always a much longer story than that. So maybe if you can give some background about kind of your journey with opiates and getting to that point, maybe start there.
Yeah, so I am almost a year clean now. It was the end of August when I did my last dose, I guess you could say. But I started when I was 19. My dad was he ended up on heroin when I was like 11 or 12. I was like in middle school, and it kind of really fucked up our family. And I always told myself like, heroin will be the one drug I'll never do. Like,
yeah.
And I've always been kind of like I don't know. I like addiction runs in my family, I guess, and I've always had that kind of addictive personality. Like, interested in experimenting with like different feelings and hallucinogens and stuff. Like, I was very curious about that stuff from a young age. I think music had a lot to do with it too. The music I was listening to, it just like really glorified drug use.
We are the same fucking person, and it freaks me the fuck out because I also I had a fairly idyllic childhood. My dad had a good job with the state. Then he had a back injury. Quickly was prescribed OxyContin like everyone was in the early 2000s. That then they started cracking down on that, and he ended up on heroin, homeless. Our family was fucked. We went from having, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, so she had to
same here,
just pull it together.
Everything was
and then
gone.
Interesting that you mentioned music, because I've thought about that a lot, because my role models were Kurt Cobain, Courtney Love. So
I was obsessed with Eminem. I had a huge obsession with Eminem in middle school and stuff, and so
I think I was listening to him too, and I was just like, you can suck my dick if you don't like my shit.
Exactly,
because that was I felt so cool.
But and then all the rock stuff, and just a lot of it was, and then eventually that music became my kind of sanctuary when I was going through withdrawals and stuff. That music would be one of the only things that kind of gave me a slight amount of comfort, which was it's very weird, but
it is. Well, it's complicated. I've gone through periods where I had to kind of stop listening to music that triggered me. I couldn't listen to Nirvana for a while because it brought me back to this place, because I also was a musician and very much glorified. When I was little, all I wanted was to be a drug addicted musician. That was my only aspiration.
Dude, same. It's
die
weird,
young.
I literally wanted that. I wanted
too.
to be able to get high whenever I wanted, and just kind of do whatever the fuck I want. Go out at night and just it's it's twisted that you people, you want that and you glorify that, and I thought I was fucked up for that. But also
like
time,
being like that age, like 11, I feel like is such a profound fucking time for especially a young woman. You are just hitting puberty, and now all of a sudden, like your stability is ripped away from you.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, so you are gonna like turn to other role models, and it's weird. Like a part of me, I never had an aversion to heroin, despite it ruining my family. I was just in such a death spiral. I did not care. Like, you know,
I also like, I as many like drug, you know, like drug classes and stuff they teach you, I didn't fully understand what addiction really was. I always thought of it more of like a mental thing, and I always thought of myself as like a strong mental person. Like, oh, I wouldn't. They never taught me about the actual physical addiction to it, where your body literally can't function without that drug. And the moment I felt that, I was like, it was so scary. I always thought like dope sick meant the nausea, like the nausea you get from doing it. Like I thought that's what dope sick meant. I didn't like fully understand.
No, it gets so the amount of suffering. I can't even like. Sometimes I wish that someone because you can't explain it to a person who hasn't felt it. Like,
yeah,
I wish there was like a machine that could just make someone feel it for a second, just so they really fucking understand what we're up against.
I think they really need to teach that to kids more too. It's like not just a mental thing. It's literally a physical, like your body cannot function without having that drug once you start doing it. Yeah. I think that would scare kids away from it a lot more. But the first minute you feel that, once you feel like, oh, I actually need this. Like it's horrifying. Like I just remember like my stomach like dropping. Like,
but so when was the first time like you realized, like, did you? Because I actually didn't. I was an alcoholic first. I started with alcohol as like my first thing, so it was just more accessible, and then I moved on to whatever drugs were around, and I didn't get into heroin until I was like 21. You know, and then periodically throughout my 20s. So.
I smoked weed first when I was like 14. I was like the stoner. And then I started drinking when I was like 15, 16, and I was drinking a lot. Especially like senior year of high school and stuff. I would probably consider myself like an alcoholic. Like it was bad. It was like affecting me bad. It's like, I don't know, it's kind of different. I don't know how to. I was definitely drinking like way too much every single day, all the time. Like it was not healthy.
Yeah.
And then
I think that constitutes alcoholic, because it's like there's so many levels of like alcoholism and how dependent you could be on it. Like, and if you're like a vodka first thing in the morning, but like for me, when I was drinking daily, I wouldn't start drinking until like 4 or 5. So it felt like, oh, I don't drink first thing in the morning most days, so I'm fine.
And I was drinking like before classes, like before school. Sometimes I would put like some orange juice and alcohol, like go on the bus. And this was for college, and I was taking like the public transportation to school and stuff. But so I think like, and it was just I always just wanted to be on something. I just wanted to not be sober.
Yes.
And then I started tripping. I took some shrooms, and I love that. Actually, I still like. I don't like trip nearly as much, but like maybe once a year, once every 2 years, like I'll do like a microdose kind of thing. I have no problem.
I think psychedelics can be like. I'm not a hardline like AA person. We can get into all that shit too.
Yeah.
Like right now, I still smoke weed. I drink sometimes, like not that often, maybe like once a month, and I drink a few Bud Lights. Even though I've had an issue with drinking in the past, I just don't really know.
Yeah, I've also heard that. I've heard from a lot of opiate addicts or ex-opiate addicts that like once they start doing that, alcohol is just like literally can't drink anymore. They just like don't care about it.
Yeah, I just don't care about it the same way. But it's hard to like socialize as an adult and like feel included without drinking at all. Like you can, but. It's definitely challenging,
No, for sure.
But I find psychedelics can be very therapeutic. Like I've definitely had very beneficial experiences from psychedelics and even from like MDMA. So it's like drugs. It's such a mixed bag. Obviously, you have like the crack, the fentanyl that only brings evil suffering. and then you have other drugs that have medicinal purposes.
Yeah.
You know,
No, I definitely think
psychedelics.
like Molly and shrooms. Some people are acid people. I'm more of a shrooms person, but I think in like on occasion, as long as you like balance your life, if it's not affecting your life where it's getting in the way of your daily routine and your personal mental health, I think if anything, it helps my mental health. It's like a little mental reset every now and then to just just go with a best friend or just like a loved one or just anything. It just like it feels really good and refreshing to like delve into that like mind state every now and then. So I like am a enthusiast, I guess, for like psychedelics, you know, to a healthy level. But
yeah. Some people like my older brother, when he would take psychedelics, it was fucking insane. Like, because he would lay like a sheet of acid and then like all these weird bath salts, and it was like, and it would be like tripping so much that he did end up losing his mind, and it really affected his mental health. You know?
Yeah, I know people who it has like fucked them up. Like,
but that's a rare.
It is more rare,
and it's generally from like an extreme amount of like misuse of like
it
psychedelics.
Might even be like a personality type that has to do with it too, because like a certain personality type or some people, like I feel like with my one friend I know specifically, it almost felt like an early onset of some kind of like something else that was like going on, and then the tripping brought that out earlier, kind of thing. But yeah, so I started doing that, and then just by accessing those drugs and stuff, it put me in like a group of people that were just like around drugs a lot, and I started hanging out with my friends who actually I'm still like best friends with now, and my one best friend, he got clean actually like 2 years before me, so he's been clean longer. But him and then my other friend, they were doing heroin like on the weekends and stuff, and I didn't touch it. Like I just saw them doing it for like a year, and I just saw them doing it and nothing bad was happening, and then I ended up trying it, and it was for years that I kept it like on the weekends. It was just like on a Saturday or like once a week or something. And I didn't get physically addicted to it. I even in between then. So I did that at 19. And then from 19 to about 20, somewhere in my, like from 20 to 21, I had like a year where I didn't do it because I started dating somebody. And then it came back around and we started doing it again. But I didn't do it as much. And then I started dating somebody else who was from like the original friend group where we did it. And he is a really bad addict. He was an alcoholic too. And us two together, we ended up just like,
oh no, you became the drug. I've been in a couple addiction relationships, and it's like, it almost feels like exciting and romantic at first because it's like, like wow, I don't have to hide this thing I do from you.
Exactly.
And like, we're both fucked up, and we're both gonna try to like
each other,
hustle together. We're just living this life, and it reinforces the normalcy to have someone doing it with you. It reinforces a false sense of safety, like. And it becomes so toxic because then it's like, oh, well, if one gets clean, that you topple each other down, and so that's how you got daily using.
Yeah, it was like he would binge, so he would do it and do it a couple days in a row. My whole thing was never to do it 2 days in a row, more than 2 days in a row. So we would get it, and then he would binge it. So by the end of his binge, I would be wanting to do mine again. Like and then it ended up just doing it. We just ended up doing it all the time. And I remember I was 22 or 23. I think I just turned 23, and that's when I became like physically addicted daily. I went on vacation, and I just brought one little baggie with me.
Not the vacations.
I didn't realize. I ran out, and I was like, oh my god, I'm withdrawing right now. I'm like, this is
I've had to cop in like these like nice, like I went to like visit grandparents, and like I had like a couple things of methadone or something to hold me, but I was like doing methadone and fentanyl, and I ended up like copping from like the one homeless guy, and it was a whole fucking fiasco. Like,
it's literally crazy.
I was calling my dealers. I was like, "I'll give you $400 to drive to Florida."
Drive to me right now.
And I was like, "Do you have any connects in Florida?" And like, I'm making all these calls, you know. So
literally, it's crazy. I had people. I had people like leave it at my house. Like, leave it under the flower pot. Like, I'll cash up you money, and then as soon as I get home, like, at least it'll be there. And just like, but I just remember that was like the first moment I felt I was withdrawing. I was like, oh fuck, like that's what this is. Like, and it was so scary. And then from there on, I was doing it daily. And this was shortly before probably like 2 years before the pandemic. And that's when it got really bad because I got laid off and I got the pandemic checks. So I was getting like $800 for nothing.
On crack in a day. Like, sorry, government. I'm sorry. I'm a different person now. But yes, that's what I was doing during the pandemic. I went straight to the crack house and we were partying, you know.
Yeah. No, it was bad for sure. That the government fully funded my drug addiction for like a year.
Oh gosh. Wait, so what was like your first withdrawal experience? Because I was so cautious about never running out. Like, I would hide baggies in my room everywhere so that I would always be like stocked up. I'd always have like one bundle. And I'm a hustler, you know. I had like sugar daddies. I was making the money come. I was supporting 2 addictions for a while, like at multiple points. Like, oh gosh. But like, I didn't feel withdrawal for real until I went into a detox, and then it hit me, and I was like, because I had detoxed off heroin like many years ago, but when I went for fentanyl, it was like so different.
It's also a lot shorter. It comes, so like I noticed, like when I first started doing it, heroin, it was still like brownish. It wasn't like the pure white. Oh, I think you froze. Are you there?
I'll come back.
Okay, there you are.
Right.
Yeah. It was still definitely like heroin. It wasn't fentanyl. And then when I took that break, when I started dating the one guy and I stopped doing it, when I started doing it again, it was like all pure white and it was like harder. It wasn't as soft. It didn't have as much as the like taste. Because I snorted it. I never ended up shooting up. So
that's probably why we're alive right now. Like, I've only shot up once, and I had a bad experience. Thank God, my whole wrist went black, and like,
oh my God,
that put me off to the needles. And I have tiny veins anyway, so I always snorted. And plus, I was hustling enough money that I could, you know, just keep getting more and more and more.
I think that is
hundreds a day. It was ridiculous.
I think that makes a big difference. The people who end up, you know, never shooting up, like at least regularly, they seem to have a much easier time getting clean and being able to go through detox and stuff like that.
Absolutely. I can't, just the withdrawal I experienced, like from snorting, I cannot fucking imagine doing IV like 3 bundles a day. Some people in the rehabs I was with they're just like screaming, like I'm traumatized. Like,
it really is. It's horrifying, honestly.
So when was like how long were you like using for before you like first were like, all right, I gotta stop? Like, when did you start thinking that it had to change?
Like probably within the last year before I got clean. Because up until then, I mean, I was obviously like, this is fucked up. Like, I don't want to do this for my whole life, but I don't want to stop. Like, I don't want to stop. I have no motivation. At one point, it literally felt like it was the only thing I was like living for. Like, I felt like there was no other point to life than, like, if I don't have something to get high on, what's the point of living? That's literally how I felt. It was like, and I think this analogy too, for me, like really made sense. It's kind of like a breakup when you're getting clean. It felt like a breakup with like a really toxic relationship that you like with someone you really loved and was really hard letting go.
Yep.
That's exactly what it felt
you
like.
experience like grief from it. And I found it like once your life becomes so focused on the fentanyl, it just simply.
Oh no, you froze again.
Sorry, I have like the
okay,
cheapest
you're
like
back. That's okay.
setup ever. I was just saying, like, when you are using it, it becomes a singular focus that almost makes your life simple. You don't have to worry about your needs, other people's needs. All you have to worry about is you getting this drug, then you feel okay.
Getting money, getting the drug,
money,
and then
that's your life.
Relief. Yeah.
Sometimes I would just look at this powder and I'm like, my life is dedicated to this powder.
I know. Sometimes I would just like kiss the bed, like, oh, love you. Like just like
I literally
it's so sad.
When my dealer was like saying like, hey, I'm about to pull up, my heart would sing. It was like
the best feeling ever. You're like singing and skipping.
It was the only happiness I had. I feel like it removed my soul, my personality, and I thought I was like relatively high functioning. Like I was working in a restaurant, like I was working like 6 days a week, like as a server at a fine dining place. So I was making a decent amount of money. And I was like kept the bills paid. So I was like, you know, as long as that's all fine, like I'm fine. Exactly. Like I'm getting by, like I'm not shooting. Like you always tell yourself because you're not doing those things, you're like
you have a home, you have a job, you're like exactly like, oh, I'm totally fine.
And you can fool a lot of people, except for people who like know your personality. And like one friend described it, seeing me as like seeing like a fake mask over like someone he used to know, like this sad, just like
that is sad,
you know, a walking zombie. And I've seen it in other people, and it's so weird when you're on both sides of like caring about addicts, being an addict. Like when you see other people doing it, you want to shake them and be like, come on, stop.
It does change you. It changed, but you don't really like notice that, and you don't even care either, really. But like when I would see my friends, like I mean, I'm using and I'm like judging my friend. I'm like, oh man, he used to be so much happier. He used to be like a better person. And then I'm like probably projecting and like, oh, he's worse than me. So I, who cares about my addiction? Like it's not affecting other people like it is for his is or whatever. But like, you try to rationalize it a lot. Definitely.
It's easy to do when you're not like, because there's always like these stereotypes of addicts, and it's like part of the reason why I want to talk about it on the channel is to just show all the different ways that this is creeping into people's lives, and like, and people you wouldn't expect, people who are serving you at the restaurant, they didn't know I was on fentanyl. Like I was doing my job, I would do just a little at work so that I wouldn't be sick, and then I'd go home and zonk out. Like
especially women, I think a lot of like females, I think it's easier to kind of hide it, or people like excuse it for some reason too. They kind of have that like, oh, like I don't know how to describe it, but I feel like guys will be like, oh, like the poor girl like had to go through all this and now she's on drugs, or her dad's gone and she did drugs or whatever. I don't know. It's just like
it's so easy to rush, especially when you're like, well, my life was fucked up, so I'm fucked up, I never got a chance. Blah, blah, blah. It's so what was it like? It's funny because we both also like got clean like a year ago. I'm coming up on it. For me, it would have been a year clean from like all hard drugs, except I did have like 3 lapses. But the way I look at it is, it's like this whole year has been a huge success for me. And I think it's really toxic when people hyper focus on a relapse, and like I didn't want to do that. I relapsed, it sucked. The next day I got back on track, but like when you're like in like AA and you're like, oh, I lost that time, the whole year was a waste. So that's why it's like I feel like like I've been living just such a different life for a year. Like I feel like that counts for something, you know?
No,
like,
it definitely does. And I think one of my problems that I have with like AA and NA and their teaching is it's like the kind of like all or nothing attitude.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it almost like they were trying to get me to like stop smoking weed or like stop drinking. And I'm like, I might like want to drink every now and then. I'm definitely going to want to smoke weed. And that's better than just doing heroin. And I feel like if you have that mindset where it's like lots of rehabs don't even let you smoke cigarettes, which is fucking like wild to me.
Dude,
and I'm not even a cigarette smoker.
I busted one of the first rehabs I went to there's like in 2021, I went to like 4 places in the span of like 2 months because I just kept getting the withdrawal and running out. It was so bad. I was just ripping wires out of me. I was like, I'm out. I can't. I'm on fucking fire and I don't give a shit about anything. Like I'm hitchhiking the fuck. I you just get so
no, literally
like crazy.
It overwhelms you to the point where you are just going to want to relapse. Like you have to like just make like steps. I feel like
exactly.
And when people when they have that AA kind of NA mindset and they relapse, they feel like they're like throwing it all away. And they have to, instead of just being like, okay, well, I am in the right direction. At least all I have to do is get back on it and keep going forward. Instead of having this mindset where it's like, oh, you just threw everything away. And you might as well just like keep using again because you feel like it's just this kind of like all or nothing attitude that I think is like not very helpful at all. Like if you need to smoke weed, like that's so much better than fucking doing heroin or smoking crack.
Or like half the fucking psych meds that are out there with the side effects they have. Like I've been like smoking more weed lately and like it helps me. Sometimes I have like too much energy and I'm like a little manic and I feel like it does kind of like help even me out. And it's, I don't know, like there's so many fucking side effects and like serious, sometimes withdrawal symptoms, even with psych meds that it's like, this line that AA creates is so fake. Everyone's drinking coffee up the fucking wazoo and the cigarette and everyone's on fucking Klonopin and 8,000 medicines, you know, and it's so
Xanax.
arbitrary. Yeah. So like weed, come on, like it's
and weed like when I was using, I couldn't smoke weed because I would like it would get in my head where I'm like, what are you doing? Like you're doing heroin every day, and you start like bugging yourself out. So I literally couldn't smoke weed while I was using because it like opened up my mind. It like made me realize what I was doing to myself. So weed for me, like I understand that it affects different people differently, but like if you're a weed person, there's no reason you shouldn't be able to get clean and still continue like smoking weed, even if it's just here and there. Like I said, as long as it's not getting in the way of your daily like habits and being able to live and not affecting you mentally and your friendships and everything, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And then
they
people
just put
are
so
also,
much pressure on you.
Yeah, and it sucks because I've like gone to meetings and like tried to be a part of that community, and like I feel like I'm lying by even just being at a meeting if I'm still smoking weed. Like and there are like alternative. Have you ever been to like a smart recovery meeting or any of those like
no, I
kind
haven't.
of alternative? I haven't either because I'm afraid I'm gonna show up and it's gonna be like 2 people and just like really weird, you know. But and also I feel like for me,
I haven't even heard of it.
Maybe it's like we live not that far, but it's something I've seen like around my city. I don't know if they've gone like, you know, international or anything yet. But I think it's a good idea to have like an alternative. Their whole thing is being like a science-based recovery, an alternative, because right now, like you'll have government, like people in court are mandated to go to AA, which is a program that it is fucking religious.
It is,
doesn't fucking work for everyone. It has like my dad did great in AA for a while. He was living in a sober house and he was clean for like 6 years and doing really well. And he did great in that community. And some people do need to be off of every, or like in a community, like also like not using, like some people do need to be hardline, like not
completely,
using anything.
I agree. Yeah.
And even for me, like when I first stopped using, I stopped everything for the first like 6 months or so. It wasn't until like further in that I was like, all right, maybe I'll like smoke weed sometimes and, you know, just see how that works. And it hasn't affected like my functioning or anything. So, but I wanted to ask you, so what was, so what happened like a year ago that kind of triggered the change for you? Or was there an event, or like you just were fed up? Like,
I think I was just getting fed up. I was just, the way I was living was just not manageable anymore. And so what I did was like, I set a plan. I was like, okay, so I want to like try to, you know, get clean. And so I knew I wasn't going to go to rehab. So what I was doing, I was like stocking up like comfort meds. So I was stocking up like and Xanax and Suboxone, trying to figure out a plan. And I was trying to do like less and less, just like very like like a year to like, I was like, okay, by this date, like by like my birthday or like a month after my birthday or something, I'm gonna try to like I was gonna have my friend come like basically babysit me for like a week and just make sure and then like give me all my comfort meds and just basically like
you need a babysitter. I did the same fucking thing because I was like, if you're on your own, you're like you do need someone there. And but the thing is, I had tried this at a friend's house before and I freaked the fuck out, and it ended up being this huge fiasco where I was like fighting my way. I ran out with no shoes to like go find my dealer, and my mom came, and the whole family was there. There's a whole freaking, you know, thing. But then I tried it again, and I took like a little less fentanyl. I kind of tried to taper that down. I stockpiled my methadone, and I didn't have any Xanax. I think I just had like some hydroxyzine and Klonopin, and I ended up going fucking insane. So probably would have helped to have some benzos.
I don't remember like a lot, but I had Xanax, and then when the Xanax went out, I had Klonopin, and I just did like a couple shots, and all I did, I just tried to like knock myself out, literally. I was so fucked up. I don't remember a lot of it, but all I know is it fucking worked. So and it's hard because like I don't want to recommend this to people because and then like give like bad advice and they end up like overdosing on something.
Exactly. But I know we should say like we are not doctors, but the fucking fact is, I do think people need to know what other people are doing, and we should be talking about it. And like. It is like no one should be stockpiling methadone, self-dispensing it, but the fucking fact is the rehabs are not accessible to everyone.
They're not accessible. The treatments are not working. Horrible.
And the decent ones cost thousands
so
and
much
thousands.
Money. Even the decent ones, like the thing is too, I think it's crazy that they try to make rehab as uncomfortable as possible. And the idea is so that you never want to come back. But it's like, first of all, rehab, if anything, should be the place you want to go back to if you ever need it.
Exactly.
Like, I don't know, but they make it like, I just wish I could have had music, or like, I understand maybe like you can't have a phone or something, but if they could give you some kind of like no internet, like iPads where you can listen to music or just like watch TV, or just a comfortable bed that actually has like a pillow or like
usually if people don't know, in a lot of these rehabs, what the fuck is the entertainment all day? You're sitting there just like
talking about drugs,
like shit,
talking about drugs like over and over and over again.
Like anytime I've always just like ended up plotting with other people about escaping, or like plotting to like go look around like the entrance, see if anyone threw any drugs out. Like
literally, you can't. Lots of times you can't even go outside. Like and like I said, you can't even smoke.
That drove me
nuts. Can't go outside. That drives me nuts too, because nature is like one of my like happy places that like I really just like gives me comfort and stuff. It would just be nice to be able to, like they should just make rehab about like. First of all, make it more comfortable and more accessible, and just easier to get through, because you're literally going through one of the most uncomfortable, terrible times of your life. And then also, I think they need to teach more, not just like you know, obviously talking about how terrible drugs are, blah, blah, blah. How did you get here? You know, guilt yourself a little bit, feel shamed and all that. But also, like, what are you going to do with your life that's like, that doesn't have to do with drugs? Just like, what makes you happy? Like,
right.
Look forward to in life, like how to reheal like relationships, or just like, what are some things that you'd like to do that will keep you away from drugs and stuff? But instead, it's literally just like talking about drugs like 24/7. And that just, I went to rehab one time. I left after 9 days. I like waited till I was like, I didn't eat comfort meds. As soon as I got home, I started withdrawing again. But and then I literally coughed like the next day.
Oh no!
And didn't do shit. But like literally just talking about the drugs all day, it just made me want to do drugs. Like just hearing about it.
It's so maddening, and also people don't understand what it really feels like to like not have the freedom to just like live your life. Everything is taken away from you when you're in these rehabs. Everything is like, you don't choose when you wake up. You don't choose what you fucking eat. You can't have coffee at this time. You can't do this. You can't. You have no control. It's like, oh, now you have to get your blood drawn, and it's like constantly being poked and prodded while you're withdrawing. I fucking hated that.
Yeah. It's just they make it already like intensely uncomfortable experience even more uncomfortable and painful and just intolerable. Like, why would you want? I don't know. There's just so many, and I honestly have like a conspiracy theory too, where it's like rehabs need people to keep coming back.
To
make
exactly.
money. So it's almost like, do they even really want people to get clean? Like maybe after the 10th time. Like
that's what they say now too. Is it's like, oh, you should like, you know, my dad went to rehab like 16 times, and like they say like you might have to go many times to work, and it's like, if that's what it takes. But like for me, I only went to one rehab that I would go to again, and it was like a very nice, like great rehab. It had like a indoor rock climbing wall, and like
oh wow,
it was in this beautiful. It's just had like was on like a mountain, beautiful nature. And once I was done, I had a horrific detox though, because they gave me 30 milligrams of methadone when I got in. And I'd been taking, 3 bundles, like 3 grams of fentanyl a day, on top of like Xanax too. So I'm doing this like double fucking withdrawal.
Oh my God. Xanax and fentanyl together are like,
dude, I know. I've seen hell, and I literally was like banging my fucking head on the shower floor, crying. Yes. And I would get up, I'd go into my bed, wrap myself in my blankets, twist, turn, cry like a fucking bitch, like a fountain. I just remember crying so much because I just wanted it so bad. Just
it's literally like a tantrum, like a child having a tantrum, just like begging. Yeah. It's literally so thing. Like it feels like it's so it's crazy.
I had an extreme physical withdrawal. I lost like 17 pounds in 2 weeks. I didn't sleep at all. Like, and this is when I was in the rehab. Like, and then when I did my at-home detox last year, I went fully psychotic, got arrested 3 times, and had to be institutionalized. It was a very windy fucking road, but I didn't. They didn't press charges. They didn't press charges for the
That's
like,
because
when I was psychotic, I thought that everyone was actors who were fucking with me, and I broke into someone's house because I thought the actors were there. And that's when they like, if they had pressed charges, I'd be in fucking jail. Like that's
that's another problem too. Is the system, the like consequences with like the law and drug addicts, and how we treat that too. Like sending drug addicts to jail and stuff. It's just like, it's not helpful at all, really. Like it actually just makes it so much worse.
Yeah, I've talked to people who have had to detox in jail, like without comfort meds, and it's just
that was my biggest fear. That was always my fucking biggest fear, is having to go to jail.
Oh my God.
And they don't give a fuck. They don't even give you like your normal psych meds if you.
Once you're in jail, you're just like not a human being. Like your rights are, they're totally fucking.
Are you froze again? Hold on, you'll come back.
I don't know why that just like keeps happening every 2 seconds, but
it's good.
I saw like a chart where it showed like the population of people who were institutionalized and then the increase of people in jail. And it's like everyone who was like in the institutions in the 60s, it's just like they ended up in fucking jail. That's where we put the mentally ill people in fucking jail.
Yeah.
That's the new institution. And that's where people are getting their mental health care from, you know, wardens who have no experience with that shit. Like,
yeah, seriously. It's not like, if anything, jail should be like its own kind of rehabilitation system,
yeah, exactly.
or like reform, like for people. Instead, it's literally just like a dungeon, like where you're literally all your rights are stripped from you. They don't care about rape. They don't care about sexual assault. They don't care about people killing each other. Like, it's really bad.
It's run by like gangs in a lot of the jails, you know. It's
just
like,
there was one prison recently. I think they were finally I think the state finally did something about it, but this was like known. It was going on for like decades, and they would have like the guards would place bets on the prisoners fighting each other, and they would have like actual like fights between the inmates, and they would like put money on them, like, and this was going on for like years. And I think they finally, it's like a very notorious prison in California. I think like some of the like bigger people, like Charles Manson went there, some of the like really big people, but
it's horrible.
Yeah, it's bad. It's really fucked up. And they, you know, the world has so many problems. Like, they're gonna focus on like prison issues. It's like nobody cares.
Yeah, there's not that sympathy isn't there, but people just aren't really understanding like
exactly
how high like so many people are in there. Like, when my brother went to jail, it was not for like a violent crime. It was because he did like he was psychotic and did something weird in public, or like pulled a fire alarm, and you end up in jail for that, and then you're not always given treatment, and it's a really fucked up situation, like beyond fucked up.
I don't think anyone should be in prison for a crime that isn't a violent crime, or like a crime that threatens the well-being of other people. Like, that's just my personal belief. I think we should have some kind of other like punishment or consequences for those people, whether it be like monetarily, or they have to like work for like do some kind of like work without like getting paid as much, or something
like some charity philanthropy, because that could be like a healing experience to like show someone the joy of helping others, you know, you know, help hopefully redirect someone, you know, if they're going down that path.
Oh no.
Sorry.
Okay, you're back.
At least it's like it's coming back like really quickly.
Yeah, it is. It's only for like 3 seconds.
But I was just asking, I'm curious, like, what was the timeline for you? Like, when did you start feeling normal? Or do you feel normal? Like, what has that healing process been like for you?
So I feel like normal. Sometimes it's still like wow, it's like confusing a little bit, like especially in the beginning. I was still like, whoa, like this is life, or like I was doing that, or it's very like surreal feeling. And
once your brain comes back, and you like your soul comes back and your personality comes back, you look back and you're like, I was just like putting a gun to my fucking head every day. Like,
no, I get really sad thinking about it sometimes, like how many years, because I think I was doing it was like most of a decade, at least like half of a decade for daily, and then just like it being in my life was definitely most of a decade. I started at 19, and then I got clean at 20, right around my 28th birthday. So, but I wasn't doing it every day. I was probably doing it every day for like 4 years, I think it was, maybe.
Wow.
But
that's a long time to keep it up too. So like, do you mind if I ask how you were like funding that? Were you working a lot, or did you like, I was doing like OnlyFans and shit like that on the side?
So I was working, like I was a functioning addict for like a very long time. And then I was doing some of that like online stuff too. And then I had the pandemic happen. So I had some like side like weird jobs, like dog, like pet sitting and stuff like that.
Nice.
And then the pandemic like fully funded me for that, pretty much. Yeah. So.
And how did you feel about like? Do you regret like doing like the online stuff? Is that something you had ever done before, or was it like something you did out of like addiction?
So I did it. I like dabbled in it with like my one boyfriend. He like he was like into that, but I didn't really make money with it. So I don't regret it, but it was like, I don't know. It was just definitely like desperate.
Yeah.
They were like desperate things for sure.
Yeah, when you are desperate, you're more willing, like, because for me, I don't really give a fuck if I'm like naked online, the fuck ever, like, but
yeah,
I regret some of the like role plays I did, just like weird shit where I just wasn't thinking through, like, this might be out on the internet somewhere, or like, because I was just like, oh sure, whatever, you know, like money, what the fuck ever, you know, like,
yeah.
But for me, I'm trying to like get out of that whole. Like, I still have a couple like random sugar daddies from those sites that have like sent me money over the years. But for me, I find it like I was never a spiritual person. I've always just been like very atheist and stuff. But like, I had like some kind of spiritual experience when I was detoxing, you know, where I felt like I was like talking to God. And it was like probably part of my psychosis, but it did kind of like open up this feeling of like, oh, I think I get spirituality. And I feel like when I'm in the sex work world, it has this like kind of darkness.
Soul, it does feel like, very it feels very like wrong for some reason, at least for me, like, or like when I was doing it out of desperation, like it just felt like I was like selling my soul a little bit. Like,
it is. It's like little pieces of your soul and intimacy that like can be really special with someone else. And I always had this really just like super biological view of like sex and intimacy, like it's just a bodily function, like and like as I've gotten older, I just have like a much more nuanced appreciation for what it means to like save that for someone special, you know. And like it does feel I don't really have regrets because I feel like my experiences have shaped me and I can help other people, you know, through sharing that. And
that's how I feel too. I don't really regret a lot. The only regrets I ever have in life are when I like hurt other people. Like that's the only time I regret things. But like I've been through like a lot of shit, and I would say like not a good idea. Probably wouldn't do it again, you know, if I had a chance. But like I don't really regret those things as much of crazy shit I've seen and been through. It was just like, it made me who I am and how I got. Like, if anything, those terrible things might have been the reason that pushed me to getting better today.
Yeah. And also, like, I feel like depending on the kind of person you are, some people can really almost benefit from, like, suffering intensely because it'll give you this more, like,
motivation, kind of?
Well, like, just, like, a more profound appreciation for, like, I don't know. Sorry, I like forgot where I was going with that.
No, I've kind of always felt like that. Like, even when I was younger, I feel like I had this like dark, poetic kind of like soul where like it would stimulate my creativity through like those like times of like suffering and misery. And it would like feed my creative side, or just like my. Yeah, I don't know how to describe it either, but I think I get what you're saying.
Yeah, and it can like connect you to other people, and I feel like broadly, like I just can relate more to anyone who's like faced obstacles in life, and I have such a deep gratitude for my health, all this basic shit that like people like living in a clean apartment or like being able to buy clothes or all these things are like, wow, it's amazing. It's like a beautiful treat to me.
Seriously, it really, it does feel like that. It's like, oh wow, like when I can get little like dopamine moments of just like, oh, I'm just gonna cuddle up and like watch a movie or like go for a walk or like, oh wow, the birds are tweeting. That feels so good. Like I honestly never
feel that. Like when you're on opiates, you don't feel those appreciation. It takes away the negative feelings, but it takes away the positive too.
You're literally numb. Like I really felt like I was just, the only thing I cared about was my next high, being able to get money for my next high. And then the only excitement I would get is when I got like the text message from my drug dealer, which had the special ringtone. So I always knew it was him. And it was like, oh yes, like here it is. Like, and that was the only like highlight of my life.
I would be so giddy. It's sick. Like kissing the belly
at the same time.
I would be so pumped. That was like my big, except because it's like you're suffering and now it's like, oh, relief. It just is like,
and then realizing that that's what gives you that relief and happiness makes you like super sad though, when you realize like, wow, this is what's making me happy right now. And then you get really depressed, you don't care, you just do a line and then you're fine. Like it's just not a fun way to live.
It's not. And I'm so glad, like, because I feel like for me it's been challenging. Like the last year, like I was having a lot more mental health issues. Like at first, like it took me kind of a while to come back from like the psychosis that I experienced from withdrawal, the lack of sleep, and just the shock of everything. Like it took me a while to really feel kind of like myself again. And it's just been like coming back more and more. And it's such a beautiful feeling, and like reconnecting with old friends and like just those very simple pleasures, being able to fucking smell the grass or smell fucking anything. Like, because my nose was always stuffed and like,
dripping. Yep. I had the same thing. So and I feel like I'm slowly, like even just now starting to get back into it a little bit, but it's still hard. I was having like pretty bad anxiety, especially like social anxiety afterwards, like getting clean. I like literally never wanted to leave my house. I didn't want to like go see people. It was hard to like talk to friends and family for the first time being clean, because like I felt like kind of like guilty or just like, are they gonna believe me? That was definitely, and I'm still kind of adjusting to all of that now. But once you get over that first hump, like I like finally saw my mom like clean for the first time like maybe like 2 weeks ago, and I was so nervous about it, and then finally like talking to her and stuff, and I could tell she like still didn't really know. She was like, if you still need help, and I'm like, all you can do is just like keep telling her like, no, I promise, like I'll call you more often and everything. But like
it takes time for people really to believe, like it takes time for like people to have that trust in you again, which
is fair, totally fair.
It's totally fair, and you just have to kind of take it like a champ and just show through your actions and through your lifestyle, like I'm different now, and it takes people a while, but it's so beautiful, like being able to, like I'm very close with like my mom, and I live with my younger brother, and just realizing like I had robbed them of me for years.
I'm an only child. So I felt like with my mom, it was like it was just like super hard, because like obviously my dad wasn't with her, and then thank God like towards the end she finally got a boyfriend. It was like the first time she's dated in like a decade.
Oh no.
I was just so happy she had like somebody that like made me feel like a lot better, but it felt it just felt really fucking terrible not being there for her and being like her only child, and she was like alone, and she's like in her 60s.
Sorry, I like this. You're like, just like me. I do like it. I like almost just like fell forward. Sorry, I'm like
I do this stuff.
I don't know how to. I'm like the least coordinated person in the world. Like,
I'm so clumsy and klutzy, so I get it totally.
So are you just close like with your family, or like your mom is like is that who you're close to? Like do you have a good support system, do you think?
So my mom, she's great. She's like a really good mom. I think I'm just I don't know, because of like the drug use and stuff, I lost like most of my friends, and I lost most of my connection like with my family and stuff. So I just felt like I kind of made myself like, you know, isolated myself to the point where I didn't have a support system. And then like at the time, my one best friend I did have, he finally got clean. So I couldn't really like go to him while I was still using and stuff. And so while I was still using, the only person I did have was like my toxic ex-boyfriend, which was not a good support system at all. But like when you like that was another thing too. Like when I was using and I isolated myself from everybody, I was so desperate for just like any kind of communication or like relationship with anybody. I let all of these terrible people into my life, and it like, yeah, it was not good. So I do now though. Like now that I got clean, I definitely have like friends that are there for me. I have a boyfriend now who's like really amazing. And my mom is a really good support system too. So but
yeah, that's like for me, that was what got me through. It's just like having my mom is like very, very supportive. And never like, she's so great at like never making me feel bad about it. Like I feel like she almost should make me feel a little worse, but she's always just been like, she's been around addiction for, you know, so fucking long with everyone in my family, like that she really does just see it as like an illness, but it's hard because it's like an illness that you like do have some control over. So it's,
exactly,
it's hard to like feel bad for yourself or like,
you
know, and I always wonder, it's like, why did we get clean? Why us? It's like, why it all seems so arbitrary. Like, why did I get so many fucking chances? Like, all these nights I did so many pylons, so many drugs, like, and
did you ever did you ever overdose?
No, I've never. Well, not that I'm aware. Not that I.
Same. But there was one time where I thought I might have. I like woke up one time and I literally felt like my heart was like slowing down, and I like texted my friend and I was like, yo, make sure like I call you in an hour or something like that. But yeah, surprisingly, I never overdosed either. And like, thank God, because I was living in this room by myself, like away from anybody. Like nobody would have found me like ever. Like, and the other thing is too, I was so bad at answering my phone. I never texted anybody back. I never called anybody back. So it wouldn't have been weird for me, like, to not answer.
Yeah, that's the same way. It wouldn't be that weird for me to just drop off for a few days, you know? Like, and I've had other health issues too. So that's why for a while my mom didn't catch on, because I would kind of isolate for a while because I had like some complications from Lyme disease or the fuck ever. Anyway, I had like random, like, just like health shit. So it wasn't unusual for me to kind of like not go to every family thing or like be tired. Like, so that was like how it stayed kind of like covered up for a while. But God, it really is like just getting clean. It truly is like a miracle.
It is, yeah. And
so do you have any like thoughts on like spirituality or faith? Has that been any part of your recovery? Are you like where do you stand on that kind of stuff?
So I don't call it like a religion or anything. I just like, I have the belief that, like, I personally believe that there's some kind of weird thing. We have no idea what it is, but I feel like there is some kind of like deeper like spiritual thing, and everybody's perception of like how they experience it through their lives is what they consider like God or the creator or whatever. And obviously I don't think anybody knows the actual answer, but how it like you know, how they experience it in their life is their perception of it. And I don't know, I guess like if you were to categorize it, it's closer more to like the kind of like pagan kind of stuff, where it's like nature is kind of like what I see more as a god, because like that is literally the creator, right? Like what makes us is like water, the sun, and air. Like that's what we came from. And
I always think of like God and the universe as being like kind of interchangeable, because I'm not like a big religion person. Like when I first got clean and was still kind of psychotic, I was like trying to be Christian even though I'm an atheist, and I was like, maybe I'm someone who just needs that like structure or something, like, and I was still having like weird like delusions, but that kind of like faded away. And like I still, though, I view like each religion as like can be like have wisdom in it that you can like I like reading like certain parts of the Bible to reflect on like higher values, you know, like, and like Psalms and like the nice parts where it is like good wisdom to live a good life, you know. I obviously don't know how to. I've been fucking up for too long, like,
especially in personal relationships. I think like a lot of like the main religions like Islam and Christianity and Judaism, I think they give a lot of good information for like how to treat other people and like the experiences and like forgiveness and just like how
like Jesus set like a good example, you know. He was very fuck the rich, like he was like reaching out to prostitutes, like that, you know. I love that him as a character, I think was broadly a good example. And I read it more as like a just like an ancient text that is valuable enough to have been passed on, but I take only what I want from it and I don't literally believe it.
Exactly. It's where like a guideline.
I like using like kind of like biblical terminology sometimes, or like talking about God, but I'm very much like, when I say God, it's more just like the universe or whatever. For me, it is very
whatever it is.
Open. And every religion could be a pathway to get to some same level of enlightenment, and that's, you know, I'm kind of like a pluralist with that or whatever.
And I think that's totally fair. I think it's kind of like asking a lot for people to be able to actually explain and fully define what they believe like God is and everything, because like literally nobody knows. As much as everybody like can say that they do, they're like, we really don't know anything. So to make somebody like define like what is your belief and, you know, explain everything, it's like nobody can. So I think that's, I think it's totally fair for, you know, to go through different like stages of like, oh, I think this, or and then it evolves into something else, or like taking, like I myself have had like weird spiritual experiences that it's like unexplainable and stuff, and so I just feel like there's something there, and I can't like that's just like what I feel. That's just like my intuition, basically. But like I'm not going to tell other people like, no, this is what it is. It's just
exactly
what I've experienced.
Yeah, and especially when you take like psychedelics and you have that kind of like mind-opening experience, can really shift how you see the world.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, no, definitely.
And I think like the biggest positive for me in taking psychedelics was just viewing myself from an outside perspective. And I remember just looking at myself and being like, everything you worry about doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And like, I was lifted of, I used to have all these thoughts that everyone hates me. They're talking about me. Like I had all this social anxiety and like this fear that everyone just hated me. And like
everyone's judging you all the time. Yeah.
Once I like was outside of my consciousness, I realized like, wait, that's just objectively wrong. Like, do you want your thoughts to be in reality, or do you want to make up a fantasy to hurt yourself? Like, you know, like
most people are so exactly like how you're thinking. Like I think most people think this, like people are kind of walking around like, oh, what are they thinking about me? Or maybe not most people, but most of the people I talk to are like this. And then you realize like, wait, well, if I'm thinking that, so many people are just so self-indulged. Like they're too worried about themselves to care about what they think about you. At least, like maybe for a split second, they'll be like, "Oh, I don't know, weird shirt or something," and then they'll move on and forget about you completely. Like people just don't have the time or energy to put that much deep thought into others. And I don't know if that's been around for like forever, if everybody has always been like that, or that's more of a social media thing where we're like always like super hyper analyzing everything about each other and judging, or if that's always been around since like the beginning of human history. I don't know, but I don't think social media
probably like social media probably just like magnified at times like a million, because you do kind of like sort of live your life like it's a show, and you want to like sometimes I'll be thinking and I'm like thinking in tweets and I'm like, oh, that'd be a good tweet, that'd be like, what the fuck is going on? Like what? Like why?
I've met people who like live their life like through their profile. Like their profile like is who they are. It's like a resume for their life. And they'll like, I don't know. It's just like to explain themselves, they just like show you their profile or something. It's like they put more into their social media presence than their actual being.
Yeah.
It's
really it's super weird. And I feel like broadly people like the mental health of this country is like in a state of absolute crisis, even just for your average person, because we weren't designed to live like this. We need to be physically fucking active. We need to be eating food that isn't poisonous. Fucking like for me, when I'm broke, I eat fucking muffins, these cheap ass like preservative filled like little muffins and candies, because that's what I can walk to. I don't have a car. I can't always afford to get Instacart like delivered. You know, so it's like it's really challenging to like live a healthy lifestyle, but like
the food is so bad. Sorry to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
The
feel free to cut me off anytime, like because I do that all the time too.
The food we have like in this just the way to get food and eat healthy is so difficult. I feel like in our culture or society, I don't know if it's like that for the rest of the world, but they make it like extremely hard to eat healthily, and just I hate that. So I just feel like that would help so much.
It absolutely does, because people are like, so I've been like reading about like the testosterone levels dropping and like the microplastics and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I find it like really fascinating that like male testosterone has dropped like 30%. Like that's huge. Wow. And it's just one example of how what we're consuming is changing our physiology, you know, and like kind of profound ways.
No, even just your brain power, like the food helps your brain functioning and your thinking power and your ability to sleep, or like do you have too much sugar and caffeine in you, or it totally affects it's a whole trickling effect where it will affect everything down to your mental health, your physical health. And then just on top of that, how bad it is for the planet too, the way that we make food. It's just, there's so much wrong with everything. It's really frustrating actually. And
I have to send you this video of like this guy, he did a speech on like the meta crisis, just kind of like encapsulating this moment we're in. I forget his name, but like there's just so many imminent threats to like the planet and human well-being that everyone is just kind of like paralyzed by like
it's too overwhelming.
And how do we fix these problems when there's these, you know, huge incentives not to, like, and so many like corrupt forces like in our government and corporations working,
because they would lose so much money. They would lose money if all of a sudden we, you know, stopped using plastics and started using like materials that aren't putting microplastics in the ocean, just killing everythh. It's like there are ways to do it, but it does. It really does feel hopeless. And then I think that goes back to like the mental health of everybody, and then going to use drugs because you do feel so hopeless and like it's like pointless and everything. It's a whole mindset as like
it is, because people are making an educated choice to drop out because they're looking at their options and they're saying, okay, I guess I could like work at McDonald's all the time, like get an apartment, or I could just like play fucking video games and watch porn in my parents' basement because that's just the best option for me, you know. Like that's so sad, but it's really hard to work against your human instincts, like especially like with the food thing. Like we evolved to crave fat, sugar, salt, and when we get it, we would consume as much as possible because it was such a rare commodity, you know.
And so now that's like everything that's available. Yeah, exactly.
It does feel like hopeless, but I have a lot of hope just in my interactions with other people, because there are a lot of people who do care
There
want to improve things. And like my family, we're trying to do like a foundation to, you know, focus on like prison reform and mental health care reform. But we're struggling to even know how to narrow it down. Like, where do we fucking start? You know, like,
yeah,
I guess it's like lobbying is kind of the name of the game so far as like getting things changed and media pressure, like, but
yeah, I think. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, you can go ahead, because I was just gonna say, I was curious, like, what do you think you do now that like kind of helps you? Like, do you have any tips for people who are like how do you deal with like cravings or things that come up like that?
So when I get a craving, I literally just like remind myself like everything I would be throwing away. And I honestly just think about having to go through detox again and just like everyone I would be letting down myself like first, honestly. And just like reminding myself like you are throwing away everything. And I try to what I try to do is I just try to not like focus on it and dwell on it too much and just like distract myself. Like just find something to do, or even just like call somebody, just like talk to somebody. I think people in your life, like your support system, is probably one of the most important things to have. Just like having somebody you can be honest with, you don't have to like hide anything from, and just like, just be able to like vent and be comfortable telling them like, I had a craving, like, and not feeling like you have to like lie to them or be like, oh yeah, I'm totally fine all the time. Like just being able to be like, and explain it and talk it out to them. Like, I had a craving. This is what triggered me. This was the thought I had. And then going through that thought process, like, wow, that's so fucked up. And then being like, but that's okay. And
you always have to remind yourself, because I would always think like, I just want to use one more time. My tolerance is down. Like, I want to, see, I'll actually get high. Because, towards the end of the use, I wasn't even getting high. I was doing so much, and it was
just not to get sick.
Me.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I was literally spending $200 a day just to like not be sick. Like, it was barely touching me towards the end.
Yeah.
But I feel like what you said is like so important to have people that you're being honest to, and honesty and like holding myself to like a higher moral standard has been like important for my recovery. Like when I did relapse, if I wanted to relapse and keep using it, I would hide it. But this time I told the people I cared about, like right away, like
immediately,
this happened, and I'm not doing it again. But like, that just so it's just having everything be out there and open and honest, because it's like once the secrets start and you start hiding things, I feel like that's when it can get really treacherous,
Yeah, no, for sure.
And also just like I can't like I have to live my life in a way that doesn't produce guilt. So I have to like hold myself to this higher moral standard, because I'm just raw dogging my feelings now, So if I do something bad, I feel bad, So I've like really had to, like I see like little minor fucked up things, like shoplift like a lipstick or something. And I just have decided to like really try to live by a moral code. And I found that to be like, help me feel like in a higher spiritual state in general.
Yeah.
And like try to just be in that higher self or whatever.
And, like a not really like a karma, but like kind of living by this like what you put in like comes back on you, kind of like, and that's something that I totally believe in. Like it's like the laws of like energy, like every action there's an equal or opposite reaction, and I kind of believe that's like how things work, like on a conscious level or like even like a mental kind of like soul level. Like what you put in like is what you'll get out. So like the more effort you put into something, the more you'll get out of that, and the minimum amount of effort, you won't get a lot out of it. So I think living like that, like to that moral higher standard, that no matter like how small it is, if you just keep like stacking that up, you're gonna get more like good things out of it. If you keep doing little bad things, it's gonna add up and like come back on you in a
yeah,
bad...
that's what it feels like. And like, even when like everything's going wrong in my life, I just try to tell myself like, you know what, this is karma. I did a lot of fucked up shit. I'm just gonna take it with, like with a smile and try to, handle it. But like, in a way, I'm reaping what I've sown. I've made a lot of horrible decisions. I'm 34, starting over from scratch. Like, and it's exciting in a lot of ways, but like, it's also overwhelming and hard. And it's like, I look at other people in my age group who are at such a different point, but this was my life path. And like, I did in my 20s, at least I did have a lot of fun. I got to, play in bands and live out my dreams. So it wasn't all, for nothing, but I'm just starting over from scratch. And but it's exciting because I could go any which way, and I still have my fucking apartment. And I'm just I really focus on gratitude and just really being so happy for what I have, being so happy every day that I don't have to fucking call my dealer, wait 7 fucking hours for this guy to show up, maybe.
Literally.
Like,
that's a good point too. Like the balance between like being hard on yourself, but also not being like too hard on yourself. Because like
it's a hard balance.
You want to, you want to be like, oh yeah, I fucked up, blah, 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 but not to the point where you literally are just like so mad at everything. And it is kind of exciting. Like, it honestly just feels good being able to get like some kind of like happiness just from like the little things in life. And like,
I know,
you forget.
It's like, what? Like, but it just enjoying music again. Like, I couldn't enjoy music the same way when you're like on opiates. So there are all these just like simple pleasures, and it's great because most people don't appreciate these things in the same way, so that's like one of the few benefits is like this perspective of knowing deep suffering, knowing how bad life can get. So
it's a unique experience, and like you don't have to. I just think that's one thing. Like you just don't have to hate yourself, or like you might feel like, oh wow, like I wasted all these years, or I really fucked up, blah blah blah. But like there's still things that you can like get from it that will like progress you as a better person. Like, wow, I've been here, or maybe I can help others now, or like now I get to start over. Just being thankful that you got out of it, because the percentages of getting out of it are so low, which is what I think is also just like crazy. It's like, oh, rehab and AA are the only way to get clean. And it's like, well, then why are the success percentages like less than 10%? And you're telling people that's the only way to do it? Like, that just doesn't logically make sense.
The fact is, everyone's different. Different things work for different people. There's different pathways. And I tend to be like into harm reduction, but I do see that sometimes people take the harm reduction thing too far, and it'll justify all kinds of shit. And you're like, okay, like, it's a little too much. But yeah, I think it is. It's just about living in a different perspective of gratitude. And it's just so opposite of how you live as an addict, of like a state of desperation and gratitude for fucking nothing. You don't really appreciate anyone. You stop caring about other people, like
caring about yourself.
You don't care about yourself. Like, I would just walk out into the city at 4 a.m, find a crackhead, like I fearless, like it was totally psycho. But we are coming up on like hour 15. I don't know how long you have, but I also wanted to touch like maybe towards the end about your thoughts on like just the state of gender wars, because I did want to talk to you about that a little bit too. But I don't know what your time situation is like, or we can maybe go for like another 15 minutes or something.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm not like in a crazy rush or anything.
Okay. So I'm curious, because you were on the panel. I'm curious, how did you get into talk? And I've looked at your channel, and I was like, finally, like someone who I kind of relate to, who was like a reality based like feminist who's like talking and like, but also is like inclusive of men. I just feel like you're kind of maybe on the same page with stuff like that. Like,
I kind of get like mixed reactions, because like I feel like the two kind of like more celebrity cases I talk about would be like Amber Heard and then Andrew Tate, and a lot of people who support Andrew Tate will like be or they support Andrew Tate, and then they also like hate Amber Heard. So like people are like, how can you like hate Andrew Tate and Amber Heard at the same time? And like because both of them are fucked up. Like it's just in my opinion. It's like
people can't comprehend like making your own opinion about each scenario. They just expect like, oh, if you tend to be a feminist, that means you believe this. Like,
yeah, exactly. It's like they politicize everything instead of just like looking at everything like in a singular case. And it's just like, oh, well, you're on the left, so you must believe this, or you're on the right, so you must believe this. But yeah, I just feel like I like just choose, you know, every topic, just like believe, just like go for like what I think is right and wrong. So there's like a lot of things that like the red pill like talk about and stuff that I can kind of understand and agree with, but I just think they take it like way too far. They go with it too far, and then I think they use it like mostly for to profit and to get like, like, so and then there's things that the feminists do the same exact thing.
Like, I feel like it's almost two sides of the same coin of the like
literally
when I'm on Twitter just saying like the extremist feminist and the extremist red pill, and it's like I spend a lot of time talking to red pill people, and I feel like there are some people who are using it as like a space for men to like mutually support each, like there are those like positive aspects in it that I do see, but there's also just so much toxicity in it. And I try to like talk to them and, you know, be like, hey, like I'm a feminist, I'm a woman, but like I see your struggles, and like I don't know, I want to heal the gender wars. It's kind of like my rough goal, because it's just getting demented and like and that's also, it's like kindergarten, like, oh, boys stink, girls stink. It's so fucking
literally stupid. I'm like, oh, boys rule or girls rule and boys rule.
That's what it's literally. It's so stupid.
And I think relationships are probably one of the most like, I just think people get really like, I feel like love and breakups and having like a hard time with relationships like affects like people's mental health and your loneliness. And your just like overall stability or just like your drive in life. So I think that's why it is such like a big thing for me, because I think just like healing that relationship between like men and women would make people just feel like so much, it would just like lift a huge weight. And there's so many ideas that are thrown out there on social media that just like makes you demonize the other side, and it feels like validating, especially probably like as a younger person, if you've just been like cheated on for the first time or you had your heart, it's like, oh my god, that's exactly what I'm going through. Like now I think that all men are like this, or I think that all women are like this, and it's like a group that's like accepting you, but it's perpetuating these really toxic and damaging ideas that really aren't true overall.
That's what makes me sad, is like thinking of like the young men who can get like sucked into like certain more extreme aspects of like incel ideology, and they're like guys who aren't bad looking, like maybe they're like 5'9", and they're being told that no one's gonna fuck them because they're 5'9", and it's like,
exactly
what? I just don't see that in my world. Like
no, same.
I see so many average short guys with like decent looking girlfriends. I've dated short guys. It's just like, that's not reality, but it's like true. Some guys are not gonna do well on fucking dating apps. Like you're gonna have to go into the world and like get hobbies and meet people the old-fashioned way, you know? Like if you're not
that's the other thing
good looking, like
conflating dating apps and dating app data with the real world, and then like taking like truth, and it's like that's nothing like the real fucking world, or like people aren't.
Not. It's not. It's like they act like dating reality shows and like the dating app like data for like OkCupid is like, you know, representative of all people, and that's so, it's just wrong. It's just inaccurate.
It really is.
It makes me so sad to think of like a young man internalizing all these views that are gonna make him repulsive to women. We can fucking smell that shit. You could like fucking smell it. You know when a man has hatred towards women, like you can just kind of feel it. So if you're a young man stewing in that hatred, you're just ensuring that no woman will touch you, and it makes it so frustrating to me.
it's the assumption. So I've seen it, like I've seen lots of women do it too. Like women will be like, oh, men are like this, or like this guy's definitely gonna be like this, blah blah blah. And then guys are doing it too, like, oh, all women are like this. She's gonna treat me like this, or she's gonna ghost me, blah blah blah. And it's having these assumptions. It's like fearing things before they actually happen. So it's like kind of like anxiety in a sense. You're like living in this world where you're like fearing things that haven't happened yet. So instead of just like going through it and seeing if it actually will happen, you're making like predeterminations about people that you don't even know are true or not. And then, it's all just being cycled online.
It's so sad. It's really fucking sad to me. And it makes me just like, especially like, it's like men's like mental health awareness. But I just think of like all, like if you think about who's watching like these big streamers, there's so many just random kids who I feel like are just sitting in dark rooms, like having these parasocial relationships and watching porn and just living in shame and stewing in resentment, and like they just feel so stuck in that, and it
porn
makes me
too
really sad. Yeah, the porn. That's why I don't want to be in that world too, because I felt kind of like a drug dealer in a way for like the clients I had. Like their behaviors reminded me of addicts in a lot of ways.
Yeah, no, for real. Yeah, it's also just hard for me because it's just like it's just so fake. I'm like being this person that isn't me at all, and then somebody's, people are reading it, and then they're getting another false perception of women that now I'm putting out there that I don't want to contribute to. And then it's like, so there's like these fake porn, there's so much porn out there, and these OnlyFans girls and stuff that are giving men these false perceptions. And then they go online and they watch these channels or like these TikTok videos of women just being super ridiculous. Like, I need a millionaire, or like, I need you to be 7 feet tall, or I only date NBA players and I just take them for their child. They're like a child support money and stuff. Like, I don't know people in real life. Like maybe I've met like one person like that in real life.
Right.
Like, that's not like a normal thing. And so on top of that, with like the porn and they're just like, there's just so much hatred. Like it's just like really disgusting. It's like scary, honestly, sometimes too.
It is. I'm like very corny. I feel like I'm love pilled though. I just feel like I feel like love is more powerful than hate, and it can like neutralize it. And I've seen like just really good reactions, like talking to incels online in a non-combative way. And for some it's the first time they've interacted with like a woman or feminist in a way that didn't make them feel like shit, So it's like that can be really, kind of powerful too in its own way. Like, do you feel like, how do you identify like as a feminist, or what is your like, how do you feel about all those like labels and stuff?
I don't like putting it out there like oh, I'm a feminist, because there's so many like judgments that like associations that go along with that. But like when it comes down to it, like the way I believe, like I feel like I am a feminist, and when I think of feminism, I think of just like gender equality, just from like a social and a legal perspective. So it's just like men and both men, like there aren't as like there are differences. There's 100% gender differences, but they're not as black and white as we make them be. Like not all women are just like naturally amazing mothers, and then like not all men are these like hyper like sportsy or like aggressive or like Superman. Like there are men who are more sentimental, or like they like art and stuff, and then there's women who are very like sportsy and loud and bossy. Like I just think these like old conditioning ways of the genders, like I just don't like that as much. I do think in relationships, like there is going to be like a nice balance between femininity and masculinity to keep. But when we're talking about like descriptions of people or like boxing people, I don't really like the gender boxes as much. So that's what I think.
Do you have any strong thoughts on like trans issues and how that fits into feminism? Or is that like not?
I don't relate like trans issues to feminism, because it's just like I don't see really how they overlap. Like I just feel like trans issues are going to be completely different from women issues. I mean, maybe just like as a gender, just because it's like a gender issue, I guess. But like,
well, I say because it's like when you're a feminist and you don't include trans people, then you're a trans exclusionary, feminist, or like that's kind of like the term they use against it. And like, I have a lot of trans people in my life. I love and support a lot of trans friends on like Twitter and stuff. But I do have like some kind of like heterodox views on it, and I do think that a woman is an adult human female. I think that a trans woman is a trans woman, and I will always respect anyone's pronouns and how they want to be addressed.
Same,
but I do think there is like a conflict in women's sex-based protections and like certain things with like trans women in jails and sports and stuff.
Yeah,
some of those things
definitely in sports. Like I think it's like it's gonna hurt women just in general to have like in most sports anyways. They're good. Like I could see like some sports where it's not being like if where physicality really isn't a issue, like maybe I don't know, but or maybe just like a non-competitive like level sports, like I don't really see that much of an issue. But when we're starting to give like medals to like trans women, and they're like literally taking away medals from biological women, it's
crazy.
That's not really helpful. And I
the
just
fact
think
that it even got to that point is like, that's what scares me about like these institutions, and even in like the government, it really scares me to think that they could be legally changing the definition of woman. I just think of like the downstream effects for generations of what that will entail. Women do need sex-based protections. We are biologically vulnerable in a way that men are. Like, and that matters sometimes.
There's just totally different issues for trans women and biological females. Like they're just gonna have totally different issues. I just like I definitely like separate the two, and I'm totally supportive of trans people and like I like respect pronouns and everything like that. But as far as like totally intertwining the two, I don't know. I don't think it helps, honestly, either party. Like, so,
How do you feel about like including men in feminism, or like in that conversation? Like, do you think it's distracts, or do you think it's a good thing to maybe try to include men? Like, or how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's
like, how do you feel about like male feminists? Because that's always like, people have different reactions to that.
So male feminists, it's confusing because I think there can be male feminists. I think there's actually a lot of them, but the guys who are out there like, I'm a male feminist, they tend to have like, just from my experience, they tend to be like kind of have like ulterior motives. That's just from what I've seen.
I have seen that too, like so blatantly, and it's just like, ew, like come on.
Yeah, it's like no. But I think most guys, I'd probably say most guys believe in feminism like as a concept, but they're not out here like, I'm a male feminist, like going to like marches and stuff like that. But I do think just I don't know. That's why I like the panels like with Wick and stuff, just getting women and men together and discussing these issues in the same space and just hashing it out. I do think like that discussion and those conversations can be helpful because we're hearing the both sides, like, the problems. I just wish there was like a way to actually get somewhere, because it seems like we're both just like letting out and ranting all of our issues without talking about solutions as much.
It's so much easier to point out like what's wrong with everything to think about actual solutions. But I do think in a way like just having conversations can be part of the solution, because it's like, this is like how action starts. It's like it starts with the thought, word, action. And I think that in our own little way, everyone's kind of shifting the conversation. So I'm trying to shift the conversation in a way that is productive, that isn't hostile, that is like, I would like to talk to more like people on the men's rights side and just talk about how we can work together to like be better to each other and really hear what they had to say. There's a guy cohort on the last panel I was on, and I thought he had some really brilliant things to say, and he was like, to me, like the best of that community, because he's someone who had struggled with mental health and he found support in the community. He improved himself and like, you know, now tries to help other people improve themselves. And I think, you know, that's the best aspect of it, but there is so much toxicity too. But I think
I agree.
It's very like validating. So many like men or people on that side, they're not used to a woman really like validating them or like just letting them say their piece, it seems like, and that in itself really can de-escalate. And all of a sudden, oh, I do know a reasonable feminist, you know, it's like they're not all, it's like that matters, you know.
It really does. Yeah, like that's why I like going onto panels that have like usually completely opposite views of me, and especially like when we're talking about like gender issues. There's like one show, they're like kind of a smaller show, but like I was going onto their panels like weekly, and they're like definitely like more of the manosphere, like red pill. Some of them are more extreme than others, but like I was trying to go on there regularly to like show them like, yeah, I'm a feminist, but I'm not like this like crazy, like trying to give them like a rational, like show them that there's actually reasonable women out here that like agree with you guys, but also this is why some of what you're saying doesn't latch on to the majority of women, or maybe not the majority, just like a good amount of women. And the ideas that you're putting out there to other men can be harmful sometimes too, even though what you're saying is valid also at the same time. Yeah. So there's like a balance of not trying to like point out issues, but not trying to like make it seem so doomy and like hopeless and like blanketing everyone where it's just like so much tension.
Yeah, and just being able to concede certain things to them or be like I will happily talk about, you know, the fucked up things that women do, and like
same.
And I honestly think that's an important part of like this next stage of feminism would be for women to really acknowledge the power that we do have now.
Yeah.
Like we have more power to harm as well. And we need to we need to just be cognizant of that, and like cognizant of the fact that we are doing better than men in some ways, and like maybe they need support, you know, like in education and in mental health. Like men are having really bad outcomes, so it's like I don't know, something's going on. And I do think the conversations help change cultural norms, and that's probably the best that we can do is try to shift a norm within feminism. I want to set a higher moral standard of like enough with the men are trash shit, enough with the just 100%. Like shitting. That's not. It's where we're at.
We're past that. Yeah.
Like,
so that's one thing I really like to talk about is when we talk about feminism. And like I almost want to like make like a new word for it because there's just like all the associations.
But like, also those associations can help us reach other feminists and maybe de-radicalize them and kind of bring them. It's like a word to like find people kind of. I have thought the same thing, but what I'm hoping is just like create a new wave, because there's been like waves of feminism that had like I relate to like more like in the past, and like, you know.
So when I when I think about like feminism, and if we think about like gender equality, like legally, politically, socially, gender equality would help men too. So dismantling all of these social stigmas of like giving women shorter jail sentences, or giving them more of a tolerance, or giving them like better chances in custody cases, or giving them or giving men more stigma, like negative stigmas in domestic violence and stuff. That all is sexism, because it has to do with, but it just happens to be sexism that's benefiting women. So if we were to go back to like actual gender equality and dismantling these old tropes of like gender norms and gender roles, if we did get rid of those and dismantled those, that would help men, and it would give men more of an equal chance in divorce and custody cases and domestic violence and all of that. So that's kind of the direction I'm trying to take it in. And it's like, feminism or just gender equality doesn't only mean benefiting women, where it's like it's supposed to benefit both genders, like literal gender equality. Whereas right now people hear feminism and they think of like solely women empowerment and giving women benefits.
What's shown in the mainstream is fucking trash. It's like trash pop corporate feminism that is like it just represents corporate interests. Usually it's not really like anything that's like
political,
radical. It's not.
No, I was like super disappointed like during the Amber Heard stuff, like all the feminist organizations all took her side, and even the domestic violence organizations were still supporting her after all of the evidence and her literal own admittance of like hitting him and punching him and attacking him unprovoked, and like all of that, and the domestic violence organizations are still backing her up. And it's disgusting. And I've like gone on their websites and they literally never talk about the men's perspective. And there are so many women. I know a guy who has been stabbed by his girlfriend. I know a guy who was hit by a car by the mother of his child. Like I know so many guys who have been domestically abused and physically hurt by women. It's like very common. But for some reason, we like politicize it to make this like leftist like feminism kind of like viewpoint instead of just
it's all about like being a powerless victim, and that is so toxic. Like I feel like I did internalize, like I was like much more like a SJW kind of like, you know, that kind of feminist for a while, and I felt like I did kind of internalize this like chronic like I'm a victim in all situations, I'm powerless, and like I just feel so much happier and whole, like since I've been more reality based and looking at it like more clearly, and like, I have less power in some ways, I have more power in other ways. Like but when I really think about it, I do think it's better off to be like if I could choose being born a guy or girl, like in America, I would choose girl, you know, because in this particular moment, it's an awesome time to be we're doing great. You know, for the most part, like, there's always shitty things, but like, I think I would rather be a woman because we still are benefiting so much from like affirmative action, even though we are now outpacing men in a lot of ways. It's
no, and especially in school, there was like science-based research in this, like the way female brains, like in younger girls, they like will develop faster, just slightly. So like girls in school ages are like almost at the same level of boys, but that are a year ahead of them. So some people actually want to mandate like sending boys to school like a year earlier. So it would be like younger girls with boys that are like actually like a half a year or like a year older than them, and they would be more on the same developmental like brain.
Because the frontal lobe comes in like a little later for men. Like I feel for like boys, it takes a while to develop. I feel like my frontal lobe took a while to develop. Like it came in late.
Well, and then there's research. Like I don't know. Like I've never been like actually diagnosed, but I feel like I have some kind of just like I feel like I'm on the spectrum. I just like. I feel
that too. I'm like, who knows what's wrong with me?
So autism, people with autism, their brains actually tend to look more like the opposite sex. So like females with autism, the way their brains work, they like function more in and the way like the male brain functions, and then for men it's like the opposite, which like kind of makes sense to me, just like how I don't know, just throughout my life I feel like that maps
Do you
on.
feel? Yeah. It sounds like people judge if you're like, oh, I feel like I have some masculine traits, but it's like sometimes I do think like in some ways I have a more masculine like thought process in some ways, but I'm also like very very feminine and
No, same.
You know, it's like such a weird. I've always wondered if I've been diagnosed with everything and nothing. I don't know what to believe anymore. But like, all I know is yes, I'm crazy. But like, I get so hyper fixated on things and like, and I have like weird like sensory issues. Like I'm very.
That was
my
one
temperature regulation is weird. I am very sensitive to lighting and shit like that. I don't know.
So like, yeah, like women, because there's not many brain differences between men and women. It's like the way that we process things. So like women tend to be better multitaskers and men tend to be better at single task, like hyper focusing on one thing. And then they're like a little bit, it's harder for them to multitask things, whereas women tend to be better at like multitasking and stuff. Forget what I was gonna say now, but yeah.
So I think another like important part of like a new kind of feminism is being very real about sex differences, what they are, what they aren't, but like talking about what they are and when it matters, and that it does impact like men and women do tend to communicate differently, and that causes a lot of friction. Like. And they're you know, everyone's different, but there are like broad patterns in how like the sexes behave, and that's okay. And you're not gonna see the equal outcomes in like every fucking industry, you know, like women might be more
I think
things, and that's okay. Like I don't
embracing
know. It's so hard to know.
It's funny too, because like a lot of feminists or like the more extreme feminists, they view women qualities, like feminine qualities, as like weaker or worse or lesser than, and it's like they call themselves feminists, like they're like pro women, but then they like idolize all these masculine traits and like think badly about natural feminine traits, and it's like, how are you going to be pro woman but hate on like womanly things? Like that makes no sense. So I think that's also like another direction that we should like try to steer feminism into, like actually embracing the, like you said, the differences between the sexes and the natural biological differences, and then learning how to just like, first of all, just accept them and be okay with that, and embrace them and like love them and look at them as like as good positive things, and not just like hate on everything that's feminine, or just like think it's worse than masculine things.
Yeah, I remember for a long time, like I never wanted kids, but part of me is like, and I do now, like later in life, we'll see. I'm running out of time, so we'll see what happens. But like, part of me wonders if I did kind of internalize, like, it's just not cool to be, or to want to be a mom, like to have that desire at all. It just didn't feel like cool or right, or like, I don't know. It seemed like almost like an embarrassment, or even wanting like a monogamous relationship. I felt like I had to, like take on almost like this more masculine persona, and like
not wanting to be like, I remember like I was like a relationship person for like a very long time, and I feel like my friends would like make fun of me for it, or be like, oh, like I don't know, I just feel like that kind of whole life of like casual sex and like hookups all the time and stuff, it's so like glorified, and it's like very kind of made fun of if you're just like having a normal like just vanilla serious relationship or something. Or even my mom, like growing up as and this was like, I'm 28, so like she was raising me, so this was like 2 decades ago at least. Even her friends would like put her down for being a stay-at-home mom, like they were like working women and stuff, and they would kind of just like leave her out, or kind of like look down on her for like not being like the working like career kind of like woman. And it was like, and that was 2 decades ago, so I can't even imagine what it would be like doing that now.
And it's just like not even possible now, like in this economy. It's so sad. It's like, because I am concerned about like how children are being raised when it's like we do have to just all be working and paying for daycare, and like
I benefited so much from having a stay-at-home mom. Like she started working like part-time once I went to elementary school, and I was like doing full-time school days, she started working, but like having her like from preschool and when I was doing half days in kindergarten and stuff, like that was amazing. I couldn't imagine. I also like I never had to do like the after school care and stuff. Like I always went home. My mom was always like there at the bus stop, like to walk me home and stuff. And like I had like I know kids who like go into like early care and then they go into aftercare and then they have like nannies and it's like they're never actually with their parents.
Yeah, and that's
scary.
I just worry. And then when they're not being supervised, they're on the internet, you know, looking at fucking like learning about sex through like hardcore pornography, watching videos of people getting beheaded, like
chat rooms. All the fucking fucked up videos there are, and then chat rooms that people like. Facebook. It's
really, it's such a different world to grow up in, and like I feel like lucky that I grew up in the 90s, you know, and I do feel like a lot of the strength and stability I have came from like I did get this first like stable 10 years of my life that were very normal, you know. Dad was around, I had a normal job, mom was at home, I had 2 brothers, like, you know, we'd go to Disney World and just do shit like that and lead a charmed life, you know. So it's like sometimes I feel like that helped me have like, because my life wasn't always fucked up, so I have some, you know, core like positive like foundation to like fall back on in a way. But it is
we have such similar lives. It's like really funny.
I know that I couldn't believe it, and you're like talking, I was just like, what the fuck?
I know.
Like very very specific things, but that's
I know
life is good like that. But that's also why I like doing like random like panels like that, you know, even if sometimes they can get like ridiculous, but it's always nice like meet other streamers and connect with people online, because I think it's fun and I like having these conversations. Even if it wasn't being streamed, I'd like having conversations like this. But I do think it's good to have for people to see just like a real conversation between like 2 women who are both feminists, who are both in recovery, and you know, just trying to use like I feel like, you know, when you get a second chance at life, you should try to do better, you know, and like try to just have a positive impact and have that gratitude that like, all right, I got another chance. Like
I have this chance. Like I actually did it. I think so many people kind of just feel like they'll hate themselves for it or like really look down. And I think that's a hard part. I think that's something that keeps people from getting clean too, is they feel like I've already fucked up this much in my life. What's the point of getting clean now? But like it really, no matter what time, like I know this woman who met the first love of her life in her 80s. She's literally like fucking healthy as ever. She couldn't be happier. Like she loves this man. They're getting married. Like it can happen whenever. And just because your life doesn't go a super cookie cutter perfect way doesn't mean that it's a waste. From like literally there's so much to do at any point in your life to look forward to.
Exactly. And I get so like I get so frustrated when like, you know, we're talking to someone who's like 26 and they're like, it's too late to start college now, or like I can't do this now. And I'm like, people live for a while these days. We don't die at 50 anymore usually. Like you know, you can really, you know, like even though I'm 34 and planning on going to school, I can, you know, I can make a decent life for myself, you know, and ideally have some kind of positive impact. And I've had a lot of happiness lately too. And it's just like, it's amazing. So I do also want to show people that there is life after fentanyl. And even though the suffering and the withdrawal is terrible, it's
worth it.
It's beyond because just the happiness I get from little things throughout the day is just so much better than feeling nothing, feeling like and now
it only gets worse too,
you know. It's like
like you might be at a functioning stage where it's like, okay, I'm managing this, I'm getting my fix, blah blah blah, like I have rent and stuff, but it only gets worse and worse and worse to the point where you're doing things that you wouldn't do before to get stuff. You're living in a way that you wouldn't have lived before. You're cutting people out of your life, and just your health, just like in general. Just like think about how it's going to impact your body when you're older and stuff. Like it all can get worse. Like there's never a point where it can't get worse. It can continue to get worse. So
and what I always tell people too is it's like you might not get fucking lucky tomorrow. Like every time you don't die, every time you get a batch that doesn't kill you, you got lucky. Like for me, I always tell myself like, all right, I got lucky enough times. I don't think I'm gonna get lucky again if I go back. Like
that's the thing too. The most common time like people overdose is when they relapse, is when they start using again after being clean, because their tolerance isn't the same. And it's just like how it affects you and everything. It's very dangerous. So but just be happy that you are where you are, or you know what I mean? Just like, just be thankful for what you have, and just like try to pull the joy out of just like the little things. Like the little things, it seems stupid when you're on heroin and you're hearing people say like, oh, the little things make you happy. But like, I know, actually, you do feel like completely normal. Like I'm not coping. Like I actually feel like glad to like wake up and have like a cup of coffee and like see the sun and like talk to my friends, and also I can actually do things. That was one of the things that wanted to get me clean the most, was like I couldn't do anything. I couldn't do my photography anymore. Passions. I stopped music. Everything that I loved that made me just disappeared. You know, I have time to do that now. I can stay awake to do it now.
I know, right? Like I used to sit and sleep for like days. Like I would sleep like 24 hours by accident. I'm like,
same. No,
like
literally.
what the fuck? Like I've missed work where I had to be there at like 6 p.m. and then I wake up at 9. I'm like, I'm sorry, I just woke up. And they're like, what? How are you waking up at 9? Like what the? You know,
I had to leave work one time because I was nodding off. Like at the, I literally woke up and my boss was like, why are you sleeping? And I was like, oh, I took some like Percocet or something for like I had a medication. Whatever. I made up some excuse. Like I hurt my back or something.
Oh no.
And it's embarrassing. It really is.
I used to smoke crack at my jobs. I would just go into the garage, smoke crack. And once like a friend came into my job and she was like, I am embarrassed for you. You are acting like a crackhead. Like I was moving weird and like you're I thought I was like acting normal. I was acting so fucking crazy. Like and it is embarrassing. I've embarrassed myself so much, especially during my psychotic episode. It almost liberated me from feeling embarrassed at all. It takes a lot now to really make me embarrassed, because I have just
same.
I've had a lot of humiliation in my life, so keeps you humble.
Yeah, exactly.
But we're coming up on 2 hours. We should probably wrap up. But wow, I really enjoyed this conversation. I knew I would from just talking like on Discord. I was like, yeah, we are the same person. It's so fucking weird.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, I'd love to have you on again. I love like having random people on, and we could talk about whatever. Do you want to shout out you got your channel, Twitter?
Yeah, I'm on YouTube and Twitter, and it's Ghostii for both of them. The G is spelled with a 6, so it's 6hostii. YouTube and Twitter, and I'd like to have more conversations in the future, and that's pretty much it.
Well, thank you for coming on. Oh, we just got nice little comments. Said both of your channels should be bigger. You appear to be thoughtful, genuine ladies who converse in good faith.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's kind of like sometimes I just have to like not look at chat because I'll lose my thoughts so quickly.
No, same.
Oh, and then Steve said happy. We got some nice little comments here. So, all right. Well, thank you everyone for watching, and I'll put links in the description. I'm gonna hit end stream.
Right. Peace.